Back in Boston in 1978, three neighborhood kids, Jimmy, Sean, and Dave, are best friends, always together, always messing around outside their homes. One day they are playing street hockey when the ball drops into a storm drain. Jimmy, the wild one of the group, immediately starts talking about stealing a car to get it back. But Sean and Dave want nothing to do with that. So Jimmy gets bored and starts scratching his name into the fresh pavement. Sean does the same, and Dave is just about to write his when everything changes. Two men pull up claiming they are police, and they scold the boys for damaging public property. They start asking where the kids live, and once they realize Dave lives the farthest away, they single him out. Dave is just a kid, terrified and confused. And when they tell him to get in the car, he does. Jimmy and Sean can only stand there and watch their friend be taken away. As soon as they can, they run to Jimmy and Sean's father and report what happened. He immediately suspects those men were not real cops. This moment changes everything. This is Mystic River. However, the two men are predators, and Dave is held captive and abused for 4 days. Eventually, Dave manages to escape and stumbles home through the woods. When his parents and the neighbors see him, they are horrified, and whatever happened to him leaves deep scars that never really go away. Fast forward 25 years. The boys are grown men now, living in the same area, but they are no longer close after what happened. Jimmy did time for 2 years, and these days he owns a store. While he was in prison, his wife died, and his daughter Katie grew up without her parents the way she deserved. Katie is 19 now. Jimmy has since remarried a woman named Annabeth, and they have 2 young daughters together. Sean becomes a Massachusetts detective, but his home life is falling apart. His wife Lauren has been gone for 6 months, and she left while pregnant. Dave, meanwhile, works at a factory and still carries that old trauma everywhere he goes. He is married to Celeste, who is Annabeth's cousin, and they have a young son. One day, Dave is walking home with his boy after a baseball game. He passes that old street where their names were carved into the pavement, and the past hits him all over again. Over at Jimmy's store, Katie shows up and asks permission to go out that night with 2 of her girlfriends. Jimmy agrees, but only if she does not come home too late, because there is a church ceremony for her little sister the next day. Katie heads back to her car, and waiting for her is Brendan, her boyfriend. The relationship is a secret because Jimmy cannot stand him. That Saturday night, Dave is hanging out at a local bar, killing time and watching a baseball game. Not long after, Katie shows up with 2 of her girlfriends. They are drinking, laughing, and enjoying the night. Around 3 in the morning, Celeste is shocked when Dave finally comes home. He is badly injured, with deep wounds on his stomach and his hands. Dave claims he was attacked by a mugger, that he tried to fight back, and that the attacker stabbed him with a knife. But Dave says he did not just take it. He beat the man's head until blood was everywhere, and even he does not know whether the man survived or not. Dave is shaking and crying in fear, so Celeste calms him down, treats his wounds, and tells him to clean himself up. The next morning, a young boy calls 911. He reports that he and his friend found a car with the door left open and blood inside. After giving the location, the 2 kids refuse to give their names and hang up, clearly terrified. Police rush to the scene and quickly realize a murder has likely happened, even though there is no body inside the car. Around the same time, Jimmy wakes up to a call from his store employee saying Katie still has not shown up for work. Jimmy immediately checks her room and finds it empty, the bed untouched. That tells him Katie never came home. He heads straight to the store before his younger daughter's church ceremony begins. When Katie still does not appear, Jimmy starts calling the parents of her friends, asking if she stayed over. He is told that they separated in the early hours of the morning, and no one knows where Katie went after that. Jimmy convinces himself that maybe his daughter stayed at another friend's house. Then Brendan shows up at the store with his mute younger brother. Brendan came expecting to see Katie since she usually works Sundays, but instead he runs into Jimmy, the father who openly hates him. Elsewhere, Sean and his partner Wei T arrive at the abandoned car. Inside the wallet, they find the driver's identification. It belongs to Katie. Sean is visibly shaken, realizing the victim is the daughter of his childhood friend, Jimmy. Officers report that the car was left with the door open, headlights still on, and blood smeared on the driver's door and steering wheel. Sean quickly pieces things together and suspects Katie was injured during an attack and fled into the nearby woods. Police begin searching the area. They find a bloodstained piece of fabric and even search the nearby lake, fearing she may have been dumped there. Back at the church, Jimmy sits through his younger daughter's ceremony, but Katie never shows up. When the service ends, Jimmy notices police cars racing past and decides to follow them. At the scene, his worst fear becomes real. He sees Katie's car surrounded by police. Jimmy demands to see Sean and calls in his 3 cousins, the Savage brothers, who also act as his enforcers. When Jimmy finally meets Sean, he desperately asks what happened to his daughter and why tracking dogs are being used. Sean gives only a vague answer, saying officers are searching for her. Not long after, police summon Sean to another location. Katie has been found dead, her body discovered in a horrifying condition. Not long after that, Jimmy forces his way past the police with one of his cousins. Officers try to hold them back, but Jimmy is completely overwhelmed by emotion. He keeps struggling forward, desperate to know if his daughter is inside.
My daughter in there! Motherfucker! Isn't my daughter in there? No!
Katie's body is quickly taken to the morgue, and Jimmy is eventually allowed to see her. The autopsy reveals that she was killed by a gunshot to the head. Before that, she had been struck with a blunt object and shot in the shoulder. Jimmy and Annabeth are questioned in detail about Katie, what she did the day before, whether anyone had a reason to hate her, including customers from the store, and anything else that might help the investigation. Jimmy mentions that a teenage boy named Brendan came to the store that morning asking about Katie. He insists that Brendan was not dating his daughter, even though the relationship was actually being kept secret. Jimmy also gets visibly irritated when Waity brings up his own past, including the robbery that sent him to prison 16 years earlier. Sean and Waity report everything to their superior, while the investigation into who killed Katie continues. Not long after, Sean receives a call from his wife, Lauren. Just like before, she says nothing, not even telling him the name of the baby she has already given birth to. Sean and Waity push forward, chasing every possible lead. They visit an elderly man living near the crime scene, who mentions hearing a woman greet the killer, suggesting that Katie knew the person who attacked her. He also heard a gunshot. Next, they speak with the two friends who were with Katie at the bar. From them, Sean learns that Katie was secretly dating Brendan. The couple was even planning to run away to Las Vegas and start a new life together. With that information, Sean and Waity head straight to Brendan's house to question him. When Brendan learns that Katie is dead, he is completely devastated and breaks down. He explains that he really was planning to run away with Katie on Sunday to get married and begin a new life together. During questioning, Brendan answers everything calmly and consistently. Nothing about his story raises suspicion. Still, he is asked to take a polygraph test at the police station. Not long after that, Brendan's younger brother Ray returns home with his friend John. Meanwhile, Jimmy and Annabeth hold a memorial gathering at their house. Dave and Celeste attend, since Celeste is Annabeth's cousin. While stepping outside to smoke, Dave runs into Jimmy. Jimmy notices the injury on Dave's hand and asks about it. Dave claims he hurt it by slamming it into a door while moving a couch. The two talk for a while, and as Jimmy speaks about Katie, his emotions finally break. He starts sobbing, overwhelmed by how sudden and tragic her death was, and by the fact that no one knows who killed her. The next day at the police station, Brendan completes the lie detector test, and the results show he is telling the truth. Nothing suspicious comes up. Waity also compiles a list of everyone who was at the bar that night, and Dave's name is on it. Sean and Waity go to find Dave while he is on his way to drop his son off at school. Dave explains that he left the bar in the early morning hours, and that Katie and her friends had already left about 15 minutes before he did. He also claims he got home at 1:15 a.m., even though in reality, he did not arrive home until around 3 in the morning. For now, the questioning pauses, and Dave is allowed to go home. Still, Waity cannot shake his suspicion. Dave's awkward behavior, his flat expressions, and the visible injuries on his hand all feel off. Later, the two detectives head to Jimmy's house, where Dave and Celeste happen to be helping out. Seeing Dave again, Waity presses him about the injury on his hand. This time, Dave claims it happened when he carelessly reached into the kitchen sink disposal and hurt himself. The explanation does not match what he told Jimmy earlier, when he said his hand was injured after slamming into a door. That inconsistency only deepens Waity's doubts. The detectives move on to speak with Jimmy and Annabeth. As they are invited inside, Celeste excuses herself, saying she needs to take care of something at home. Sean follows her outside to ask a few questions. He wants to know exactly what time Dave came home from the bar that night. Celeste looks nervous and says she was already asleep, so she does not know what time her husband returned. In truth, Celeste suspects Dave may have killed Katie, and she fears that his story about fighting off a mugger could be a lie. Sean and Waity then tell Jimmy the truth about Katie. She was dating Brendan, and they were planning to run away to Las Vegas together. However, Brendan passed the lie detector test, and there is no evidence that he killed her. Sean asks why Jimmy hates Brendan so much and why he refused to let Katie see him. Jimmy explains that Brendan's father, Jason, is a criminal he deeply despises. Because of that, Jimmy believes Brendan must be just like his father. Digging deeper, Sean and Waity learn that Jason disappeared 14 years ago, but continued sending his wife $500 every month. They also know that Jimmy has sent his 3 cousins, the Savage brothers, to investigate the murder on their own. The detectives warn Jimmy to stop interfering, reminding him that this is a police matter. Jimmy ignores them and makes it clear that he will find his daughter's killer his own way. Back at the police station, forensic analysis identifies the bullet lodged in the car seat. The gun matches the same weapon used in a liquor store robbery back in 1984. Sean and Watie immediately track down the elderly owner of that store. Although the robbers were never caught, the man is convinced that one of them was his former employee, Jason, Brendan's father. That leaves 2 main suspects in the detectives' minds: Jason, who vanished years ago, or Brendan, who may have access to his father's gun. At the same time, Watie still keeps an eye on Dave. The cause of his injuries remains unclear, and Celeste's fear only adds to the suspicion. Meanwhile, tension explodes at Dave's home. Celeste confronts him, pulling away because she believes Dave is the one who killed Katie, especially after he came home covered in blood that night.
You're not making any sense.
You think I killed Katie?
Why don't you just tell him about the mugger?
The mugger?
Yes.
Yeah, the mugger.
She pushes him to tell the detectives the truth about fighting a mugger, insisting that if he does, everything will be cleared up and suspicion will finally disappear. Dave suddenly breaks down in tears. The memories of the abuse he suffered as a child come rushing back, mixed with the pain of knowing his own wife now suspects him. Overwhelmed by stress, Dave leaves the house to clear his head. While walking outside, he runs into Jimmy, who is sitting alone on his porch, lost in thought. They talk for a while, and Dave mentions that on Saturday night he saw Katie at the bar, looking genuinely happy. Hearing that his daughter was happy just hours before someone took her life only makes the pain worse for Jimmy. After Dave leaves, Jimmy finally breaks down and cries. The next day at the police station, it is revealed that Watie secretly searched Dave's car the night before. Inside, he found traces of blood on the front seat and in the trunk. Dave is quickly called in for questioning. He is asked about the injury on his hand, why his wife seems so frightened, and why there is blood inside his car. Dave explains that the blood on the front seat is his own. He claims he injured his stomach when he slipped while climbing a metal fence to retrieve his son's ball. But when questioned about the larger amount of blood found in the trunk, Dave says he has no idea how it got there. Since the blood in the trunk has not yet been identified and the murder weapon has still not been found, Dave is released for the time being. As investigators dig deeper into Jason's past, they uncover an old connection. Jason once worked with Jimmy and the Savage brothers in criminal activities. When a robbery involving $60,000 took place, Jason avoided prison by turning on them and reporting everything to the police. As a result, Jimmy and the Savage brothers served 2 years behind bars. Jason's betrayal for his own benefit is exactly why Jimmy has always hated him. Meanwhile, 2 of the Savage brothers report back to Jimmy. They tell him that the police are now fully focused on finding Katie's killer. Everyone who might have seen her that night has been questioned, and Sean and Watie are currently interrogating Dave. Hearing this, Jimmy's suspicion immediately shifts toward Dave, especially since Dave admitted he saw Katie at the bar that night. Jimmy goes straight to see Celeste. She confesses that she was terrified by Dave's strange behavior the night he came home. She then reveals that Dave actually returned around 3 in the morning, covered in blood. Although Dave claimed he attacked a mugger, possibly killing him, Celeste does not believe the story. There has been no report of such an attack anywhere. This only convinces Jimmy further that Dave is the one who killed his daughter. In his mind, Dave's childhood trauma has damaged him psychologically, making him capable of something horrific. At the same time, Sean and Watie call Brendan in for more questioning, this time about his father. Brendan remembers very little since his father disappeared when he was 6 years old. When asked whether Jason ever gave him a gun, Brendan confidently denies it. Sean then reveals that the weapon used to kill Katie was the same gun Jason used in a robbery 18 years earlier. Even then, Brendan insists his father never owned a gun and never gave one to him. Sean grows frustrated, knowing Brendan is lying, but he cannot prove it. After Brendan is allowed to leave, Sean and Watie replay the 911 call made by the 2 children who reported the blood-filled car. Suddenly, Sean notices something disturbing. The kids somehow knew the blood inside the car belonged to a woman, even though the car was empty at the time, and Katie's body was found deep in the woods.
There's like this car with blood in it, and the door's open.
He's dead in the park. How does he know that the blood in the car came from a woman?
Elsewhere, the Savage brothers approach Dave and invite him out for drinks. With no suspicion at all, Dave gets into their car. The moment mirrors the opening of the story, when Dave was taken as a child by predators. At the bar, everything feels casual at first. They joke around, keep drinking, and eventually Jimmy joins them. The night drags on as Dave is pushed to drink more and more. Before long, Dave is completely drunk and ends up vomiting behind the bar, right by the banks of the Misty River. In that quiet, isolated spot, Jimmy and the Savage brothers confront him. Jimmy reveals a dark secret. Jason, Brendan's father, is already dead. Jimmy killed him long ago and dumped his body in the Misty River as revenge for betraying him and sending him to prison for 2 years. No one ever knew Jason was dead. That also means the $500 sent every month to Jason's wife was never from Jason at all. It was Jimmy, keeping the family calm and convinced Jason was still alive. Hearing this, Dave realizes something terrifying. Jimmy believes Dave is the one who killed Katie. Panicking, Dave finally explains what really happened that night. The man he attacked was not a mugger. He was a child predator caught in the act of abusing a young boy. When Dave saw it happening, his past trauma took over. He attacked the man repeatedly so the child could escape and avoid suffering the same fate he once did. In a blind rage, Dave kept hitting him until the man died. He hid the body in his car and later dumped it deep in the woods. Jimmy refuses to believe any of it. Celeste herself is convinced Dave murdered Katie, and there has been no report of a dead child predator found anywhere. No matter how many times Dave insists he did not kill Katie, Jimmy is blinded by anger and forces him to confess. At the same time, the story shifts to Brendan. He returns home, opens a hidden compartment in the bathroom ceiling, and pulls out a gun. Brendan lied during interrogation. Before disappearing 14 years earlier, Jason gave him that gun. Only 3 people ever knew where it was hidden: Jason, Brendan, and his younger brother Ray. Not long after, Ray, who is mute, arrives with his friend John. Brendan shows them the gun. Panic spreads across their faces. If Brendan did not kill Katie, then the only others who knew about the gun were Ray and John. That means they are the real killers. Overcome with rage, Brendan attacks John for influencing his brother. Then he turns on Ray as well, devastated that they murdered the woman he loved. In the chaos, John grabs the gun. Just in time, Sean and Waity arrive. John, furious and desperate, nearly shoots Brendan before Sean steps in and stops it. Back with Dave, the truth is now clear to us. He is not Katie's killer. But Jimmy continues to pressure him, promising to spare his life if he confesses. Dave, a deeply traumatized man who struggles to communicate and live normally, finally breaks. Terrified of being killed, he accepts Jimmy's promise and confesses to murdering Katie, even though it is not true. What Dave does not realize is that the promise is a lie. The moment Dave finally confesses, Jimmy does not hesitate. He stabs Dave repeatedly, then shoots him in the head and disposes of his body in the Misty River. The next morning, Sean finds Jimmy sitting alone by the side of the road, lost in thought. Jimmy is stunned when Sean tells him the truth. The killers of Katie have been caught. They are Ray, Brendan's younger brother, and his friend John. Both of them have confessed and explained exactly what happened. It turns out Ray took his father's gun and played with it on the street alongside John. When a car passed by, John, thinking the gun was unloaded, fired it as a joke. The driver was Katie. The bullet hit her shoulder, and in panic, she ran into the woods. Terrified that Katie would report them and send them to prison, the 2 boys made a desperate and horrifying choice. Ray beat Katie with a hockey stick until she staggered into a bear enclosure. Then John shot her in the head, killing her. Afterward, John called 911 to report a car with blood on the road, but he never gave their names, hoping to avoid suspicion. After hearing this, Sean asked Jimmy where Dave is. The night before, Celeste had been desperately searching for her husband and told police that Jimmy might know where he was. Sean explains that police have discovered the body of a child predator in the woods, a man with a long criminal record who had been in and out of prison 3 times. Dave is supposed to be questioned in connection with that killing. Jimmy is shaken. That means Dave was telling the truth all along, but it no longer matters. Jimmy calmly claims he never met Dave. He says the last time he ever saw him was 25 years ago, back on the street when Dave was taken by 2 child predators. Jimmy then thanks Sean for finding Katie's killers. He adds that if only they had been caught sooner. With that sentence, Sean immediately understands what really happened. Dave is dead, and Jimmy is the one who killed him. But without evidence, Sean can do nothing. As Sean prepares to leave, his wife Lauren calls again. This time, she finally speaks. She apologizes for everything that happened and says she is coming home with their newborn baby. A few days later, during a city parade, Jimmy is still haunted by guilt over what he did to Dave. Annabeth tries to comfort him, reminding him that they need to focus on raising their 2 young daughters. Together, they watch the parade pass through the streets. Sean is there too, now reunited with Lauren and their baby girl. But Celeste stands alone, heartbroken and confused, still searching for Dave. Their son looks on, sadly, wondering why his father never came to see the parade. In the final moments, Sean makes a quiet gesture toward Jimmy, mimicking a gun aimed at him. It is a promise that he will one day bring Jimmy to justice for killing Dave. Jimmy responds with the same gesture, as if to say that Sean never will. Dave's body will never be found. So the moral of the story is, bad communication plus bad decisions equals a total disaster for everyone.